a question that I'm asked most frequently is, why did you become a monk? What is the cause? Why did you become a monk? And how did you get into meditation in the first place? And these two things are actually a bit related for me. You see, first my interest was sparked in Buddhism when I was around maybe 13 or 14 years old. And there was one question I had in mind during that period. Like many young people, what should I do with my life? But not only what should I do with my life. One question was also, what is the best or the highest that the human being can possibly achieve or accomplish? And I was looking in many different areas at that time. So on one side we could see that, for example, in sports, you can see some people, it's just amazing what they can do with a ball. You know, they can shoot a ball in a curve, or even in other disciplines like snooker. It's amazing. Or in music, some people can be so accomplished in that craft, any kind of art, music, painting, and amazing. But I still kept the question open. You know, is this really the highest that a human being can achieve? And then also, meanwhile, science has made so much progress. We can fly up to the moon and even further. But is that the highest that we can do? So I kept the question open for quite a while. Also was interested a bit in philosophy. And until one time, I went into the local library at the small town where I lived, where I grew up. And it so happened, just out of curiosity, I pulled out one of these books about Buddhism. I had not much idea about Buddhism beforehand, was interested a little bit, so started to read. But what I saw there really blew my mind. And actually solved the question for me at that time. What is the highest and best that a human being can possibly achieve? Because the Buddha, what he spoke about, I've never seen anywhere else. The Buddha says that with practice, you can purify your mind to such a degree that there is no more possibility even, ever, to become angry, greedy, jealous, all these kind of unpleasant mental states. And one can substitute them with the positive counterparts, like compassion, wisdom, happiness, joy, gratitude. And that this is within our capability, not just to temporarily suppress those, what we call defilements, but to completely eradicate them. That they can't even come up again in the future. When I heard that I understood for me at that time, that must be the best and highest that the human being can achieve. And to be honest, even until now, actually, I would still put that this very same thing at the top rank of what is within the human capacity. And this is how my interest in Buddhism got sparked initially. Of course, at that time, being 13, 14 years old, I didn't think about becoming a monk or even practicing sincerely towards that. But the seeds were planted and I kind of had this idea, well, this must be really the best that we can do possibly. And then a number of years later, I also went to university in a city, it's called Graz, a city in Austria. And then a few years later, there was a big event organized by the Tibetan tradition, the group where also the Dalai Lama is part of. They call the Kalachakra Festival. And our city in that year hosted that event. Many Tibetan monks, but also from other traditions. They would come from all over the world and stay for a couple of weeks. And every day they have a whole day of events, of meditation sessions, this color chakra with sand, many colored sand, and there are many symbols there. Probably, maybe you've seen that before. So that's what they did here. That's what they came for. Sometimes they organized also meditation groups. So that was actually my first contact also to monastics and meditation in a more serious way. Once I started to meditate, I was fascinated how the quality of the mind can change just within a few minutes, from agitated to peaceful, even though nothing in the environment has changed. But my inner world felt very different. And also there came the realization, not just how that is possible, but also how out of control the mind is in the day-to-day life and activities, and how helpful it would be to learn to tame the monkey mind. And then, a short while later, I also started a meditation course in the Uberkin tradition, it's a Burmese tradition. We have a meditation center in Austria, and we started to do some courses there. And I immediately liked how the mind feels when it is free from desires, attachments, free from worries. From worries about the past, about the future, and at least for a few moments at a time, So then I also started to read about the Buddha's teachings a bit more, and started to meditate also at home. And then eventually this became a main interest in life. It's so much actually that I decided, well, since this is almost the only thing that interests me anymore, how can it purify the mind, meditating, understanding the Buddha's teachings? It seemed like the other activities didn't seem so interesting anymore. Not even music, that I was quite into at that time. So there came a point where it was a very natural progression for me, where I just felt, well, in this case, since that's all I'm doing the whole day anyway, reading, meditating, and everything else was kind of a distraction, well, then I can also become a monk, no? Which I eventually did a while later. So that was my entry to meditation and to the Dhamma. And over the years, then much later, I also had the good fortune to meet a number of very good practitioners, meditators, and also Dhamma teachers. And when I was a newly ordained monk in Burma, I still remember, I used to have many questions about meditation, especially also about the Dhamma. And we were fortunate, there were a few very good monks around, and also very experienced monks. And sometimes I would just collect my questions, I would write them down on a piece of paper. And then after a while, normally once a week, I would seek out one of the venerable monks, and after a while I had one or two monks whom I knew they were very skilled in explaining and they have very good experience. So I would approach them, and then we would sit down and they would fire one question after another. There was actually one monk in particular who was very helpful, and he also liked to talk about the Dhamma, about meditation. And sometimes our sessions would start maybe at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and then it would go all the way until night when it's dark. Sometimes 9, 10 p.m. for the first few times. But then they keep going and dragging longer and longer, and we being engaged in discussion about the practice. So much so that there were times where we finished our discussion, and the next day, because we had to go on alms round, so I stayed at his kuti the whole night, just engaging in discussion about practice, about the Dhamma. That was a good time. And so much so, in future I already knew when I come to see him for Dhamma discussion, I already brought my alms bowl along to his kuti. So they don't have to go back to my kuti afterwards, but can go straight on arms round at 7, 8 a.m. in the morning on the next day. So yes, I definitely enjoyed Dhamma discussion, and my teachers were very patient with me. And out of gratitude towards them, and also to pass on, I think, some of the valuable tips that I have received over the years, I'm also happy from time to time to discuss about meditation also in this larger circle, like now. Whereas normally, I only teach meditation to monastics at SBS Monk Training Center here in Taiping. So I would say, without further ado, I wonder, Michelle, do we have any questions already to start with?
Yes, Bhante, we have a few questions waiting.